Hello and welcome back to JM Football. These are your NFL Week 16 Power Rankings. My name is Justin Penik. Alongside me is Dalton Feely. Dalton Feely, the NFL season is winding down, but the action is still heating up with these Power Rankings. That was the beginning of a DraftKings read.
I looked at you because I knew that.
That was the beginning of a DraftKings read, and I just wanted to do that. That was funny. All right, so we're going to do Caleb-Williams-Ville. I thought it was funny. The Panthers are at 32. The Patriots are at 31. The Commanders are at 30. The Panthers won, so great job.
They're out of their own tier.
They're out of their own tier.
I can't believe they won that game. That was a shit show of a game. Eddie Pinheiro's second game winning field goal this season up, and they've won 2 games.
Wow.
So, breaking news stats. Crazy how they won. I can't believe the Atlanta Falcons lost that game. I get the weather was bad. It was hard to move the ball, but how on earth do you let the Carolina Panthers win?
I wish I was at that game because there was nobody at that game.
No, you don't. You really don't.
There's nobody at that game. Thank you. Next.
Shout out Ariana Grande. Thank you for pausing.
The Jets are at 29. The Giants are at 28. Oh, and we're just when those 2 New York teams thought that there was a shot that they could run a little bit, they fall on their face, and now they're back-to-back in the power rankings at the bottom, right where they belong. The Cardinals are at 27. The Chargers are at 26. The Bears are at 25. Man, Darnell Mooney, catch that ball. The Raiders are at 24. The Titans are at 23.
Bears, can't believe you didn't win that game. Raiders, great win on Thursday night. Titans, can't believe you didn't win your game. Both those teams could have really helped my Colts AFC playoff picture, but Bears, Browns, Texans, Titans, madness in the AFC outside of the Bears, of course.
Next tier, Mid-Megh-Mughh, also known as the NFC South plus the Steelers sponsored. The Falcons are at 22. The Steelers are at 21. The Saints are at 20. And the Bucs are at 19. This actually makes sense. If you were to remove the Panthers from the NFC South, if there's one team, regardless, I'm not talking about geographical location, if there's one team in the NFL that I would like to replace them with, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. It feels like they belong.
The NFC South is the shit show division this year. And it's so funny. Like, if you're looking at these teams, Bucs, Saints, Steelers, and Falcons, you're like, ugh. Like, that's the word you use.
Yeah.
Every time, whether it's because of the quarterback situation, offensive situation, defensive situation, or coaching situation, all these teams have an ick about them. It's like if you were going on a blind date and you see these teams' resumes, you're like, you're not swiping for them. You don't want to go out with them. It's a very icky situation.
Baker looked great.
Yeah.
The asterisk is that Joe Barry, Packers defense coordinator, should be fired. I mean that has been a theme amongst some Packers fans since like 2020, where I feel like the rest of the NFL looks at the Packers defense being like, oh, they're all right. Their scoring defense is like top 12, whatever. But if you just look at them, it's like this is the least respected top 12 scoring defense in the NFL, and it's been that way every single year. So Baker Mayfield, perfect passer rating against the Packers defense. All right, so good job, Bucs, and then also the Saints. The best game that Derek Carr has had as a New Orleans Saint came against the Giants, where Wink Martindale decided to play a lot of zone, didn't get aggressive, and blitz him and force him to make mistakes. So I would say the Bucs and the Saints get the benefit of 2 teams that didn't really know how to play each of their respective opponents that week. So
the Packers defense is equipped to stop Patrick Mahomes, but apparently cannot stop Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield. Isn't that kind of crazy how that works?
NFL, baby. Let's move to the playoffs. Why not tier, where we have the Green Bay Packers at 18. Seattle Seahawks, big win, are at 17. The Minnesota Vikings are at 16. The Broncos are at 15. And our Indianapolis Colts at 14.
Chugga, 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 chugga. Woo, woo. Join the bandwagon, folks. They're coming. They're hot, baby. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. 5 of their last 6 games because they lost prior. They're hot. If it was that one Bengals game, not this previous week, the week prior, where they got crushed. But besides that, they've looked really good. Colts, man, they've had a light schedule, but you got to beat those teams on that schedule, and they got a relatively light schedule coming up. They have Atlanta, they have Vegas, and they have Houston. If they win,
actually super fun.
If they win at least 2 of those games, should be in the playoffs.
Is Pittman okay?
Concussion protocol. We'll see. I mean, DeMonte KZ gets suspended for the whole year after that hit, which is wild. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. Like JJ Watt and Tom Brady were defending KZ.
Yeah, I mean,
it was
not for the whole year, man. it's different where you have like Myles Garrett after the play swinging a helmet at somebody, right? You're playing football, and it's not like there's malicious intent to hurt Michael Pittman. It's to make a play.
I mean,
make a play.
I'm not even being biased. The problem for me is that it looked like he wasn't even going for the ball on the play, where he let the crown of the helmet, makes contact.
Dude, it's instinct, man.
It's the Kareem Jackson situation because Devontae Casey, I don't think people mentioned it. He's been fined, I think 5 or 6 times this year due to unnecessary roughness. Yeah. So,
all right, so maybe that played
it's a reoccurring thing.
So maybe that played an impact in the suspension that was the season-long suspension, which I didn't know that. So. Yeah. But anyway, that's your playoffs. Why not tier? We're gonna have a lot of our conversation. A lot of these top teams, they did play each other this past week, and they had some interesting games. So playoffs, you better be there. We have the Bengals at 13, the Texans are at 12, the Rams are at 11, Browns still at 10. I think they called them the cardiac kids on that broadcast, and it's very, very true. How many games have just come down to the wire and they come back late. The Jaguars at 9, and the Lions are at 8.
I mean, when you're saying about the cardiac kids of Cleveland, it's so true. Cleveland has won 6 games by 4 points or fewer this year. They overcome a 10-point deficit versus the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to give a little credit for the Bears. I mean, granted, they did blow that game, but they are a competitive team from being, quote-unquote, a laughingstock earlier into the year. After acquiring Montez Sweat, it's like that defense all of a sudden has flipped a switch and figured it out. The Bears almost winning in Cleveland, where Cleveland's a much better team. They're number 1 points per game defensively at home versus dead last on the road. So being in a competitive game versus a Browns team that could be in the playoffs without their starting quarterback, their starting running back, both their tackles have been injured. Defensive, they've lost 5 guys on defense going into the week, like Grant Delpit. It's quite impressive. I've gotten some Browns hate on social media because every game I've picked against them the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Known Browns hater Dalton Feely.
I mean, I'm sorry, Joe Flacco. He's proven me, I guess, wrong because they've won these games. It's not like he's played great. He threw 3. People are not going to mention him throwing 3 picks in this game.
Yeah, and I was going to give love to Tyreek Stevenson too, who I think had 2 of them.
Oh, a little rookie action. Okay.
I love Tyreek Stevenson coming out of Miami.
Yeah, I mean, it's Flacco throws for 374 yards. They win the game. That's the talking point. But he throws 3 picks, 1 being a pick 6, which helps Chicago almost win this game. Yeah. But give credit to this Cleveland team. They've been so resilient. We've mentioned D'Amico Ryans, Shane Steichen for potential coach of the year. Kevin Stefanski quietly creeping up that radar right now for that coach of the year competition. Shout out David Njoku, career high 104 yards in that game, touchdown. He had a big catch late in the game to set up the game-winning field goal, which became the game-winning field goal by Dustin Hopkins. Cleveland, that team, they're a very interesting group, but they find ways to win.
Their defense needs to get back at playing at that elite, ultra-elite level that they were playing towards the first half of the season if they want a shot at really even winning a playoff game, because they're probably are they winning that division right now?
They're behind Baltimore.
Or Baltimore's going to win the division, so they're not going to get a home playoff game. So I think getting a home playoff game would help them, offensively and defense. So offensively, it's going to be tough for them. I think regardless, teams just get better in the postseason. You're not going to be playing the Chicago Bears, especially when you're in the AFC. So their defense needs to get back at playing that elite level. But David Njoku has been the biggest offensive development for them the last couple of weeks because he's been all we talk about is Njoku is an athlete. He could do this, he could do that, but he's never done it in his NFL career. And now it's showing up in some big moments. So good for the Cleveland Browns. I want to talk about Bengals and Vikings for a little bit. What do you have for me on that game?
Bengals snapped their 25-game streak of losing games when they trail by 14 points or more entering the fourth quarter. Yeah. And, of course, it's Jake Browning who does it. It's not
the revenge game.
Not Joe. Stop it.
The revenge game that nobody really knew was a revenge game, but he takes off his helmet, slams it on the sideline. You shouldn't fucking cut me. And I love that.
The Bengals waived Jake Browning, too, and no one, he's back on the roster, sure, but they waived him. What, is he going to have a revenge game against his own fucking team every time?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. What the hell?
Prove it to him.
What do you mean prove it to him?
Prove it.
What do you mean prove it to what? To who? Jake
Everyone.
Oh,
everyone.
My gosh.
I love it.
He's playing great.
I love it.
I know. Oh, my gosh. Listen, I get the Jake Browning love. He's been great. He's been fantastic. Last 3, he's 3-1. He's got a 3-game winning streak. He's single.
I still think somebody's going to figure him out eventually.
Don't play fucking zone coverage against him. Man up on the outside. And I know it's hard with Jamar and T. Higgins. That's where he's thriving. And guess what? He can run, too. Have we not figured that out yet? Unbelievable. But
also, Brian Flores can't be showing cover zero looks on 3rd and forever like he did.
That was.
I love Flores, and I love the turnaround that the Vikings defense has had. This year from going a really, really bad unit, and he has that unit playing much better. And I love the swag of Brian Flores too. Could never work with an offensive coordinator as a head coach. But anyway, I love him, but it's like 3rd and forever, man. You can't show the cover zero looks there.
That was reminiscent a la Greg Williams of the Jets. You remember when they were tanking for the draft pick versus the Raiders? They played cover zero on like 4th down.
What are we doing?
Deep, and it was a touchdown. Unbelievable. But listen, the Bengals they're winning games without Joe Burrow. Like the Browns have done it without Deshaun Watson. The Bengals have done it without Joe Burrow. The Colts have done it without Anthony Richardson. 3 of these teams, all these teams are in the wild card right now. They're doing it with backup quarterbacks, and that's very impressive. There are certain teams, Jets, where they can't. Somehow they have their backup quarterback and they can't find ways to win games. And that head coach, Saleh, gets a little bit of a pass where these guys have upped their teams and still been competitive. Not as much in New York. Sorry. Wow. With the Bengals, DJ Reader is injured in that game in the early first quarter, gets carted off, out for the year. We've talked about how that defense hasn't been super great this season, and that's going to play a really big part. He's been their best run stopper. I'm very curious to see the impact on it towards the end of the year for Cincinnati's defense, where they've struggled. And Trey Hendrickson, again, 1.5 sacks this game. He's got 15 sacks this year. Career high. It's the 3rd time in 4 years he's had 13.5 sacks or more. He's 3rd in sacks since 2020 in the NFL. Yeah. And no one talks about him because the other 2 guys just so happen to play in his division too.
Such a good point. I do think somebody's going to eventually figure out what they're doing with Browning. I think eventually, and I think it could be a playoff game where maybe you have, a week or 2 to prepare for a team like the Bengals, and then that'll be it. But it's still very impressive because I didn't think he was even going to last this long.
They came back from they scored 21 points in the 4th quarter to come back and force OT.
It was awesome.
Super impressive.
Awesome. All right, let's move to Lombardi Land, where we have the Philadelphia Eagles. What a fall from grace at 7. Justin was wrong about the Eagles.
I think everybody was.
At 6. The Bills. Actually, no. There were people calling the Eagles fraudulent all year, and they don't look good. They don't look good. So it's not. I don't think everybody was wrong. The Chiefs are at 6. The Bills at 5. The Cowboys at 4. The Dolphins at 3. The Ravens at 2, the 49ers at 1. Lombardi Land has extended, and Lombardi Land has extended to a team that I'm pretty sure is not even in the postseason yet.
We love the Bills.
Yeah.
We do. It's talking about who they are versus who they are. Like, they're right now not in the playoff picture. They're fighting behind the Indianapolis Colts, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns. But if you're matching them up, are we crazy to say they're going to win all 3 of those games? Like, if they played any of those teams, they're winning those games. They just beat Dallas, a 10-win team who's had the best offense in football, hold them to 3 points until late in the 4th quarter where CeeDee Lamb gets a garbage time rushing touchdown. The Buffalo Bills, they look back, and they finally had that rushing performance. Like, they've never really had a running back play really well with Josh Allen being at the helm at quarterback in Buffalo. And I doing some research on this game, I thought it was very interesting. James Cook sets a career high in rushing yards and total yards in a game. Most rushing yards in a game by a Bills player since Fred Jackson.
Wow.
Fred Jackson. Remember him? Oh, CJ Spiller is so fun. And it was the most yards in the first half by a running back since LaShawn McCoy in 2016. They're finally getting that running game going. Josh Allen only completes 7 passes, and he's like, who cares? Like, we're winning games. A dominant 31-10 win versus the Dallas Cowboys. They're proving to us. We might have been wrong on the Philadelphia Eagles early on, but the Buffalo Bills, we've been high on all year, regardless of their record, because when everything's going right, they're one of the elite teams in football.
And I'm happy for Joe Brady in particular having like such a good offensive rushing game. 96th percentile in total EPA per play on early downs. The early down rushing on first and second down, 98th percentile on EPA per play. Rushing the ball was more efficient for the Bills than throwing the ball this game.
Crazy.
And they still had, overall, 69th percentile, nice, in EPA per play throwing the ball. So it's not like, they couldn't throw it. It's just that they didn't have to. They got a lead and they kept their foot on the gas. But I'm happy for Joe Brady in particular because I think Joe Brady kind of got this reputation of, oh, this is a guy that doesn't want to run the ball. And I honestly, I think it's that owner in Carolina that is super analytical and doesn't want to run the ball and wants everybody to throw. So while Joe Brady was OC in Carolina and also even coming from LSU.
That's where I was thinking, yeah.
He's going to throw the ball. He doesn't want to run. He doesn't want to run. He's just going to throw. And I'm glad against such a aggressive, good defense like the Cowboys, where it's like, hey, listen, if the Cowboys want to go after Josh Allen, if that's the main priority, and if they want to not stay disciplined and not stay in their rush lanes, and they want to bite on play action, and they just want to ignore the run in play action and just go after the quarterback, we'll allow you to be aggressive, and we'll just run the ball down your throat. And that's kind of what they did. And James, and I know a lot of Bills fans are very, very happy that James Cook is finally being used, and that, their old coordinator was a war criminal for not using him more.
We had mentioned it last week where his snap percentage is still not where exactly we thought it would be. And you brought up the great point about pass blocking.
Latavius Murray, and even I think Latavius Murray, even though he only had 5 rush attempts, I think he still deserves credit for his overall impact on the game.
Sure.
Because I kind of hate this point, because even Dallas fans had this point with Tony Pollard versus Ezekiel Elliott last year. Well, he's an all around good back, and the pass blocking, Ezekiel Elliott's better than that. It's like, no, James Cook is obviously just the best running back in the room, but pass blocking is an element of a game, and that's they have a complement of running backs there in Buffalo right now that are working very well with each other.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's the main point.
And looking at it from the other perspective, playing Dallas hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year. They almost give up 200 to James Cook by himself, which is crazy. And I get that they're missing Jonathan Hankins, but Jonathan Hankins shouldn't be the guy that we're saying he's missing. No. Therefore, we're giving up almost
Jonathan
200 yards to James Cook.
Isn't Aaron Donald or Dexter Lawrence.
And he's been he's played really well for that defense. He's been kind of an underrated player in terms of that defense because they have so many names.
Yeah, for his whole career.
And a guy that I believe played for both of our teams, right? Colts and Giants. Am I crazy to say that?
Yeah, right? Jonathan Hankins. Yes.
Yeah, okay. But he's been fantastic. And it's the most yardage they've given up since 2020 to a rusher. This Dan Quinn defense doesn't really look like that, especially in the run game. It's kind of crazy. Dallas, the narrative between home and away too, this is now a real thing. Yeah. I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, yeah, I get it. They have to be home. Tony Romo had mentioned it earlier on Thanksgiving, I believe, versus Washington. I'm like, yeah. I believe Dallas. Yeah. I now I'm full in, and you have seen them more obviously in the NFC East, to where I'm a little more skeptical about that narrative. They're 3-4 on the road, and now they have a negative point differential on the road, 156 to 152. At home, they're still undefeated. They're outscoring their opponents by 171. This is a real thing, and they are lucky that Philadelphia lost on Monday night, because if Philly wins that game, they're probably playing on the road in the divisional game, granted if they beat the NFC South winner in the wild card game, which we foresee happening. But that's a huge loss to Dallas, because this really pushes them back in the NFC East hunt, and they're lucky that Philly bailed them out.
Yeah. And again with the Bills, even going to the defensive side of the ball, the cover one guys do a phenomenal job of breaking down the Buffalo Bills, and they pointed out that the Bills ran a lot of cover 3, and the way that they ran cover 3 is they covered the middle of the field. They knew that Dallas loved to attack the middle of the field and the hashes.
Yep, CD.
Where they love attacking the seam. Think of Jake Ferguson and those tight ends, kind of attacking the seam. And they love attacking the middle field. They took that totally away, and it's like we're going to force you to the sidelines. We're going to force you to the checkdowns, or we're going to force you to the sidelines to go have somebody go up and make a play, and they didn't, and nobody was able to go up and make that play. So really great job by the Bills, and they talked about it on the broadcast, and even the fans did those fans up in Buffalo did a great job. That was a playoff atmosphere, because the Bills know that
always
Every game from now on is a playoff game, because if they lose, they're done. Mm-hmm. They need to win, and I think they need help as well. So they know that it's a playoff atmosphere, and I'm not sure Dallas was ready for that yet.
It's going to be really interesting to see if the Bills get in, because whoever they play in round 1, they're going to be shitting their pants.
And I think both AFC and NFC, Dalton, if you have the number 2 seed and you're possibly playing the Buffalo Bills or the Los Angeles Rams, I do not want the 2 seed.
Yeah, and
I do not want it.
There's a world where the Bills could still win the division. That's a stretch. They're still 2 games back. But let's say Miami loses out going into Week 18. They play each other.
What is their schedule?
Miami? Let's pull it up real quick. Please hold.
Let's pull it up real quick.
Boop, 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 boop. They play Dallas.
Oh, yes.
They play Baltimore.
Oh, shit.
And then they play Buffalo.
Oh, shit.
Like, there's a world. It's still a long
Dallas
shot.
Is the game in Miami or in Dallas?
It's in Dallas. No, I lied. It's at home. Sorry. It's in Miami. It's in Miami.
Okay.
I got excited. Sorry, I got a little excited. Woo! Yeah, a little woo.
Kooky. All right, that's super exciting. I'm sure the NFL is rooting for that scenario where the Dolphins lose out, the Bills win.
I kind of don't want it because selfishly, I want Colts-Texans Sunday night that week.
Oh.
No, Bills-Dolphins.
What would the NFL prefer? I wonder. Colts-Texans with Gardner Minshew and, hopefully CJ Stroud comes back.
They don't want Minshew Mania versus Case Keenum?
No,
what?
I'm saying that they don't want that.
It'll be Stroud back.
They don't want that. All right, where do we want to go next? So we have Ravens-Jags that played each other.
Yep.
And I think the other game that we want to talk about is Eagles and Seahawks.
Let's go chronologically Sunday night, Monday night.
Let's do that. So Ravens-Jags.
Baltimore wins its 4th in a row. They're inching closer to that 1 seed in the AFC. Huge win. Baltimore becomes the first team in the AFC to clinch a playoff spot. We talk about Mike Tomlin not having a losing record in his coaching career, but John Harbaugh has been an amazing coach for the Baltimore Ravens since he's been there. The 11th time in 16 seasons where the Baltimore Ravens have made the playoffs under John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has one losing season during that span as the Baltimore Ravens head coach. It's crazy how well and consistently well this team has been under John Harbaugh. Going into specifically Sunday Night Football versus Jacksonville, this is the first, I don't want to say the first time, but they looked kind of shaky on defense. Now they're getting bailed out by Jacksonville offensively, where they couldn't score points. They were finding ways to screw up and manage to put up a goose egg in the first half. But once again, you have guys like Justin Madubuike, who sets an NFL record in most consecutive games with at least half a sack recorded. Keaton Mitchell, who had a great game, now going to be out for the year with about 70 or 80 yards in that game. Rushing, Lamar Jackson has 97 rushing yards, almost his second 100-yard rushing game this season. The Baltimore Ravens are a unit. I don't know if I'd put them with the Niners yet in terms of that tier of their own, if you will.
No.
But Baltimore, once again, playing in Jacksonville, Sunday Night Football. You're playing a team that's winning their division currently, and you handle business and beat them by almost 3 scores.
Who is second on the team for the Ravens in receptions and receiving yards?
Receptions and receiving yards.
Who's second on the team?
Okay, so Andrews is out. Zay Flowers has been kind of quiet.
No, like this, I might have just given it away. Who's second on the team, including guys that are injured? I just gave it away.
Is it Mark Andrews?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And I am still Zay Flowers. Hey, Zay Flowers is doing what he's got to do. He's leading the team. He's leading the team in receptions. He has 20 more receptions than Mark Andrews. 65, 680 yards, 10.5 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns, a success rate of 54.3. So that's solid. It's pretty good. Zay Flowers kind of leading that charge there.
Sure.
Odell Beckham Jr., 32 catches. Rashad Bateman, 27 catches. Nelson Aguilar, 25. Isaiah Likely has stepped up.
He had a great game Sunday Night Football.
And that's that in that tight end room with Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely. Charlie Kohler is still not getting the ball.
He shouldn't be getting the ball much.
I like him though. I think he can. He's big and he can block. I get it. I like Charlie. I've always liked that tight end room from afar and always wondered why they took Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely in a tight end room that has Mark Andrews, but now the room doesn't have Mark Andrews anymore. I'm bringing up this because these wide receivers need to step the fuck up. It cannot be like I thought Lamar played a really, really good game. And I honestly was watching that game over how much Lamar was moving, how often Lamar was running, and the hits that Lamar was taking. I was saying to myself, this is the mid to late December game that Lamar Jackson gets hurt. I thought he was getting hurt in that Jacksonville Jaguars game. And it seems to be every year where, I don't know whose fault it is necessarily. Maybe Ravens fans have a better idea of it. But it just seems to happen every single year that, Ravens are hot, or not even Ravens are hot, but the Ravens are just good.
They're playing really well.
They're good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Lamar gets hurt. And then the sad thing is that they play a playoff game in which they're really competitive with the backup quarterback, and you're thinking, damn, if Lamar Jackson was here, they win the game.
Yeah.
They win the game. And I think that the way that they play football, it can work in the postseason. It can work. They're not relying on simply an explosive play. They're not relying on defense simply stopping an explosive play. They're aggressive on defense. They're good on defense. They have guys that can get after the quarterback. They have guys that can force turnovers in that secondary. We've been talking about them all year, including on our All-JM team. And I think Lamar Jackson is a quarterback that can work well in the postseason, but he needs these receivers, especially Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar. I felt like at one point a couple years ago was somewhat of a more reliable receiver than he is right now. He needs these guys to step up, especially when Mark Andrews is not here. He needs these guys to step up to the plate.
I think you bring up a great point, Justin, because we talked about the Chiefs receivers and that receiving room being an issue, but Baltimore too. They might have more, I guess, depth, if you want to call it that. But
this receiving room is better than in Kansas City.
Yeah,
but they
have to perform
and
better.
They are playing better than the receivers in Kansas City, but they need to step up to the plate. Rashad Bateman's a former first-round pick. Odell Beckham Jr. is being paid a lot of money right now, and he's not. It's not that he's playing bad, but they need more consistency out of them.
Yeah,
it can't just be Lamar Jackson running around, improvising, finding Rashad Bateman, and he winds up dropping a pass. It can't happen. And also, you can't have Lamar taking these hits.
Yeah. Going on the other side real quick, Jacksonville, like I briefly mentioned, they had 4 chances of scoring before the first half. They don't score anything. McManus misses 2 field goals. Lawrence fumbles the ball all of a sudden. And then Lawrence, the fourth drive, where it's right before half, why are we not spiking the ball? There's 2 things you got to do. I put it on Twitter. There's 2 things you do in that situation. You're hurrying up. You have no timeouts. There's, I think, like 10 seconds to go. There's one of 2 things you could do. It's either A, you spike the ball.
And the clock's not stopped.
Right, the clock's going. So there's one of 2 things you could do. It's either 1, you're spiking the ball in that situation, which is probably the more likely thing you do. Or number 2 is that you're taking a shot in the end zone. No way in fucking hell are you throwing an out route.
That was
a 2-yard out route. Stays in bounds. And not only was it an out route, you threw it to the slot. Like, it was not even to the outside receiver, it's to the slot. So there's more area to get to the sideline, which is a problem because it gives Jacksonville a chance to tackle the receiver in bounds, which he did. Causes them to end the half with 0 points on the board. Yeah. Unbelievable. Jacksonville lost 3 straight. Tied Texans, Colts, and Jaguars. It's going to be a very fun race in the AFC South, and no one thought that this would be a competitive division. All of a sudden, we got 3 teams fighting for the division win.
I love it. Division,
awesome.
Division that's been laughed at for the last couple years.
For a decade.
Eagles and Seahawks. Let's touch on this really quick. Obviously, I think that there's a little bit more talking points with the Eagles than the Seahawks.
Sure.
We talked about the Eagles defense and the Eagles in general last week. They switch over to Matt Patricia as the primary play caller. Here's my thing with the Eagles offense, and then I guess we'll go back to the defense. My thing with the Eagles offense is, where's the quick game? Like, what is their quick game identity on offense? Even Mina Kimes was on the Manning cast, where Jalen Hurts threw, I believe, that first interception to Julian Love.
Your guy.
And my guy. 2 former Giants playing a great impact on defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. Leonard Williams and Julian Love. Who would have thought? Go Giants. Go Dave Gettleman. And, she's saying, like, there's no need to take shots here. The Eagles had full control of that game. Even, they're up 7, they're up by not really a comfortable margin. But you're feeling the game. You're watching it in the analytics with win probability match this too. If the Eagles had pretty handed control in that game, might have just made up a word. Handed control.
Sure.
And
handed control.
You know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
And that possession where Jalen Hurts throws that ball up in the middle of the field, Julian Love catches it in the end zone, and it goes back for a touchback. Even though the Seahawks don't do anything on that drive, but it's the fact that the Eagles, I believe they were up 7 at that point, maybe even 10, and you give the ball back to the Seahawks when there was an opportunity to end. You could have ended the game. Either work the quick game, run the ball. You have a dominant offensive line, and instead Jalen Hurts makes that decision, throws it over the middle of the field. It's intercepted. So like I'm wondering, what is their identity on offense? Where is the quick game? Where's the running game there? And then on the defensive side of the ball, that last drive where Drew Lock, led a pretty nice drive. James Bradbury and Sidney Brown, rookie out of Illinois, they just got picked apart. And I love James Bradbury. Former All-Pro corner in 2020. I view him as more of a zone corner than a man coverage corner, but you got to be a little bit better than that. And they went after James Bradbury and Sidney Brown that final drive, and that's exactly how the Seahawks were able to win that game.
And listen, like with going back to the offense real quick, like I understand that they played the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks, but Cowboys and Niners over the last couple of weeks, they've averaged 16.3 points per game offensively, which isn't going to cut it. And let's just read what teams are ahead of them over that stretch. The Chicago Bears by over 2.5 points are higher than them in that range.
Are the Giants
The Denver Broncos, don't kid yourself. The Denver Broncos, that was toxic. I'm sorry. T-word, timeout. I know. Denver's higher than them. Arizona's higher than them. Cleveland with Joe Flacco's higher than them. Like Vegas with Aiden O'Connell. Now, granted, it was 63 points. Is going to do it, but I digress. Like this offense is just not clicking. We've been saying it all year, and now they're playing competitive, like true NFC playoff teams, and they don't look really great. The quick game hasn't been there. The run game.
And the Seahawks were not a pot team.
They lost 4 straight going into the game. They were 6-2. They would go to 6-6. Excuse me. They were 7 and what? I can't do math. They're now 7-7. Long story short, Philly. What the hell?
Yeah,
that's it for me. I can't.
Yeah. So they attacked Sidney Brown. They attacked James Bradbury. They got to figure it out, and they'll have 2 games against the Giants, the final 3 games of the year to end it. To figure it out. God help them. God help the city of Philadelphia. It will burn down if the Giants somehow beat them even once.
I want Tommy DeVito to beat them at home. That would be awesome.
Christmas Day.
Is that this week?
Christmas Day.
Oh my gosh. Give it to me. I'm not even Italian, but fuck it. Give me DeVito.
Monday at 4:30.
Oh, you're going to have a great
I host a podcast called Talking Giants, if you didn't know, and I will be working Christmas Day probably until 10 o'clock at night. We appreciate everybody. These are your Week 16 Power Rankings. We'll see you next week. My name's Justin Penik. This is Dalton Feely. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you. See you next week. Peace.